Good day, everyone. This is John Kogan. I'm the CEO of Performative, the online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar entitled A Methodology and Best Practices Approach to Integrated Business Planning. Organizations face an increasing challenge as they attempt to improve their performance and competitive position while adjusting to rapid changes in the economy, commodity prices, and financial markets. Integrated business planning provides a complete and unified planning process across the enterprise, consisting of strategic planning, financial planning, profitability management, sales and operational planning, improving organizational alignment, and financial performance. With all of these silos combined, you will see a methodology and best practices approach to integrated business planning. Now, before we get kicked off, we've got a few items to do, to take care of. One is thanking SAP, our sponsor for today's event. Without their support, we could not be doing educational events like this, so we greatly appreciate their participation. We've got a few items of note here. Number one, if you are new to Performative, we welcome you. We are the largest and fastest growing online resource and community for corporate finance, treasury, and accounting professionals. It's a wonderful resource. It's a great peer-based network. It's all free and noise-free. There's no advertising. No one's allowed to sell you or self-promote in the community. It's all just peers helping peers. It's a wonderful resource. We highly recommend you check it out at performative.com. A few notes on today's event. Number one, links to today's presentation and to the recording we're making of this webinar will be sent out to all attendees within 24 hours of the event. The presentation itself is already posted at performative.com/resources, available for, of course, a free download. So if you want to print it out, mark it up, or send it forward, share it, it's out there already, but we will send you a link in an email to make it even easier to share out. We are offering CPE credit for today's event. That means we will have 3 polling questions spread throughout today's program. Now, today's program, briefly stated, will be a roughly 40-minute presentation as soon as I'm done speaking here, and then that will be followed by a Q&A period. We will have 3 polling questions interspersed, so one will come shortly after the beginning of the presentation, the second one will come after the end of the presentation, and the third will come at the very tail end of today's webinar program. So if you're here for CPE credit, please answer all 3 polling questions, and even if you're not here for CPE credit, we'd love to have you participate. These questions are statistical in nature, and your identity will not be shown to other folks on today's webinar, so you don't have to worry about other attendees seeing what you've got to say. We would like this to be an interactive event, so if you take a quick look at your GoToWebinar control panel, you'll see a section there called Questions. So feel free to ask us questions anytime as we're going, as the questions strike you, and then we'll do our best to get to your questions during the Q&A period, which comes at the end of today's webinar. And finally, after today's webinar, we will ask you to stay on for just another 60 seconds to take a short survey. We'd love to get your feedback on the event. We always like to know how we can do these things better, more effectively. So we would appreciate that feedback. Also, if you would like to follow up directly with today's speaker or with folks at the sponsor of today's program, which is SAP, we make it very easy to make that request during the post-event survey. We have a number of learning objectives for today's event, and I won't read through them each. I'll let you take a quick look. But at a high level, we want to today is our good friend Praz Chatterjee. Praz is Director of Product Marketing for the planning organization at SAP. Praz has been with SAP for over 5 years, coming to SAP from Business Objects Cartesis. He's based in Toronto, Canada, and most recently has been working as a practice manager with North America Business Analytics Services, leading implementations for EPM products as well as services. He has extensive customer-facing experience, having worked client-side in budgeting and forecasting at various multinationals, including Nabisco Kraft, Pitney Bowes, Rogers Cable, and Celestica, amongst others, and in various geographies, including North America, China, Belgium, the UK, Brazil, Australia, and France. Wow, he's gotten around. Praz has a BA in economics from the University of Western Ontario and is a certified management accountant, which is perfect background for this particular event today. Praz, welcome, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Great. Thanks very much, John. And thanks, everyone, for having me here. And today, based on the agenda we have here, we'll go through some of the challenges and needs for planning, budgeting, and forecasting solutions, followed by addressing the question, what is integrated business planning? And then just quickly go through how to solution integrated business planning and end it with some questions. So based on some surveys that were done by Gartner, in 2012 and 2013, as you can see here, planning, budgeting, and forecasting is really at the top of the CFO's initiative list when it comes to business analytics. In 2013, in fact, it's really the #1 priority for CFOs. But one of the things that we need to talk about are that most companies have just started or are facing obstacles or challenges to becoming a strategic partner to the business. In a survey that was done with about 145 responses from mostly European and US companies, APQC defined a major finance process change program as one involving at least 2 elements: IT applications to strengthen the business analysis generated by finance, programming streamlining to boost labor productivity in core processes such as accounts payable, process automation to speed cycle times and to reduce costs, enterprise-wide efforts to standardize accounting, changes in organizational structure, and concerted efforts to develop finance talent or leverage competencies to support decision-making. The fact that 8 out of 10 organizations are now pursuing major process improvements is significant for 3 reasons. First, prior to the global financial crisis, CFOs by large were mainly interested in incremental process improvements to save money. The slogan was effectively, do more with less, summed up the general attitude. But now we have strong evidence that CFOs want to deliver effectiveness as well as efficiency. The overwhelming majority of survey respondents indicated that they are now pursuing these goals simultaneously. What gives? Well, during the crisis, finance gained a stronger voice at the strategy table. And now with economic prospects brightening, CFOs really want to be sure that finance retains its role in business planning by delivering consistently good analytical support to decision makers. Through this pattern, we need to talk about really where we go with integrated business planning. Part of this is also because finance is spending a lot of their time aggregating and validating data. The growing big data problem is really exacerbating the problem. And again, one of the things I want to reiterate as well was that some of the most popular targets for financial process improvements, again, are really to plan, budget, and forecast, which is why we're having this discussion, because it is, again, key in the minds of the CFO.
Okay, there we go. Now, on to the first question. So we'll leave this polling question out for about 30 seconds. It's a very brief polling question. Should take you about 10 seconds to complete. Once again, if you're here for CPE credits, please do answer this and the other 2 polling questions. But even if you're not, go ahead and throw your 2 cents in, and if we have time at the end, we'll take a look and see which are the highest priority areas for the couple hundred folks that we've got on this morning's webinar. So we'll leave this out for another 15 seconds. Also, please feel free to ask questions at any time using the question area in the GoToWebinar control panel. And we'll get to those questions when we get to the Q&A period at the end of the presentation, which we are going to get back to right now. Franz, back to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. So what is integrated business planning? There's many definitions of integrated business planning in the marketplace, from sales and operational planning to and linking that to budgeting and forecasting, to the link between your CRM systems and the information that holds and how that integrates with sales and S&OP, sales and operation planning. And integrated business planning enables a complete and integrated planning process across strategic, long-term planning, financial planning, budgeting and forecasting of profitability, your sales and operational planning for sales plans, your production plans, your inventory plans, your new product introduction plans. As an organization, you'll need to extend this to really your budgeting and forecasting cycle, and to include the resource planning as well as the integration with all the execution systems such as we've discussed above, CRM, and the various ERPs you may have. So what are some of the challenges we face today? Well, the mountains of data are growing. We aren't planning frequently enough or running different potential scenarios to be better prepared for potential outcomes. So we need more detailed and faster insight into the business and plan accordingly to increase the top and bottom line. It takes too long to complete the planning cycles, which delays actions and missing opportunities or simply getting it wrong. Most business users aren't participating because they aren't being asked or the tools are too difficult to use, which reduces accuracy and accountability. Planning typically only occurs on a scheduled periodic calendar basis versus continual or right-time basis. Data volumes and varieties are increasing, shifting more time on data management and further reducing the time for analysis and supporting the business. The performance bottlenecks are preventing planning from being done at a detailed level and limit the ability to perform real-time what-if scenarios and run rapid disaggregations. The inability to get immediate variance analysis on battleground KPIs delays decision-making and corrective action. Current planning tools don't suit the majority of business users, reducing planning accuracy and accountability. So what is a solution? It's really an integrated plan that involves your complete enterprise. Planning needs input from all areas of your business because it impacts all areas of the business. Now, there are challenges to this approach with integrated business planning that are easily evident. There's too many systems across the enterprise that work in silos, too many business units that work in silos, and a real lack of coordination. Systems really should not be a challenge to anyone for this anymore. In the past, coordination due to systems and processes was a barrier to a true integrated business plan, but in this day and age, it is possible to get an integrated business plan. The picture we have here is a reflection of how your budgets and forecasts should be completed, with true inputs from the various groups that coordinate and capture that data. There are some functional challenges that we'll discuss later, such as harmonizing the business processes. For example, when is the information available? Or that your budget and forecast cycles may not mesh with what the rest of the enterprise is performing or calculating. For example, do we have the right KPIs or other metrics that will ensure harmony? So we've talked about data a few times, and it's always a concern in the world of integrated business planning. Too much data exists, and it's growing within the enterprise, and how do we tackle it? And more importantly, how do we normalize it for the purpose of an IBP process? From a business needs standpoint, there's quick insights from all business relevant data and adjust the plans based on scenarios. From technical challenges, there's the cost of storing and the process, the volume of data that we have. There's a pressure to gain insight into this data really quickly. There's lots of different data formats that make it difficult to analyze. There's combining the insights across the formats, the time demand, the volume, the speed of processing is difficult. And finally, how to identify the data sources and how to collect it. So as described, the problem is big data. The performance implications due to data volume size and or complex planning calculations really limit the ability to plan at very granular levels and run complex scenarios and allocations. This can involve endless granular feeds or columns that need sorting, filtering of irrelevant information. Even if we had the entire world at our fingertips, the question is, do we have the time to use it? As a finance department, we're there to guide the business, provide advice, and to avoid pitfalls and help grow. So what we do now is we have a solution. Really the solution is in-memory technology that is available for enterprises to use. What it does is it helps drive rapid consensus by quickly simulating what-if scenarios with multiple versions of plans and large volumes of data, there's no need to work on the side doing simulations in offline Excel spreadsheets. You can enable planning and forecasting applications based on real-time operational data combined with analytics, effectively understanding your business real-time. I've worked with situations where clients are entering data into ERP and that's coming directly in real-time manner into their budgeting and forecasting situation due to the fact that bigger data volumes can be handled through in-memory technology. And really what this enables is make the impossible possible. Ask questions you were afraid to ask due to technical constraints in getting the answers. Just a quote from a user we've worked with in the past, really, in that just in giving insights into the benefit of being able to access your data quicker and getting the right data in order to be able to push out decision making. So now we move on to how to solution integrated business planning. The business benefits of getting more people engaged in planning processes drives better results and accountability. And these are some of the proof points, tying closer links between finance and the business. So when we look at integrated business planning, we need to look at how the business is influenced by information and the other way around as well. It's not an easy task, and how the information also influences the business. It's not an easy task that's accomplished today, but it's a journey that takes you through tomorrow and beyond. It's a journey that needs to evolve constantly. One key thing I like to point out to organizations is that integrated business planning is not something that will be accomplished in one day or 1 month. It's an evolving journey because as organizations, you're facing acquisitions, divestitures, mergers, new business initiatives as well. And your strategy needs to be flexible enough to accommodate the ever-changing business world that you have, as well as the external climate, everything facing the economy and things of that nature. So when it comes to business strategy, key questions to ask are really, who are the key businesses and IT sponsors, and what level of support and availability can be expected from them? How much does each organizational unit contribute or is affected by the business processes and scope of this initiative? Are there centralized, decentralized processes that can be standardized when you look towards integrated business planning? And look at some of the business processes that are communicated and reconciled between the different organizational structures. And some of the most important ones, which groups will own the process? As well, do you have any service level agreements internally and externally? And if yes, what are some of the key requirements and metrics agreed upon that will be impacted by an integrated business plan process? In terms of business processes, are you looking to fundamentally change the business process as part of this initiative, or just looking to simply automate the existing process? If you're happy with your process the way it is, maybe automation is the key. But I look upon, when entering this journey, I look at it as a moment to really take all the issues you have and be able to fix it and go towards almost a utopia type scenario. In terms of performance metrics, are there key KPIs or metrics that will be inputs and or outputs of the process? How will these metrics be communicated to the user community, to management, and the executives? Is there a book of standard reports that need to be replicated in the new solution? And how many distinct reports are needed, and who really are the consumers of these reports? Moving to more of the information side, things to look at are architecture. What are all the existing systems that you have and their usage? Are there plans for any additional systems that can impact your integrated business planning process? And is there an enterprise-wide information management strategy? And how will the solution adhere to those standards? With regards to the applications, what are some of the operational applications and providers of the transactional data that will be utilized in this new solution? What are some of the financial applications, such as ERP, GL? What are some of the HR applications, the CRM applications, and such? And finally, in terms of data, which of the following aspects of the business are necessary for analysis and planning purposes? Effectively, you've got a world of data awaiting you, but what are the key metrics you need to drive your business? Is it products? Is it management hierarchies? Is it employees? Is it different calendar years? Really having all this data available, it's time to now aggregate and really think about what data you need and how to properly define that data within your enterprise. So one example I'll use is sales and operational planning. The key with integrated business planning is to tackle one problem at a time, even though you have a vision for your future. One such problem is the sales and operational planning issue, how to go about reconciling this area. There's many functions with many different data points, and normalization is always tricky. However, through the method prescribed in the previous slide, in terms of doing a proper analysis of your overall business situation, this can be mitigated through the resolution of the big data problem via in-memory or as described before. And really, this can be done at the speed of light through multiple mappings. Requirements and outputs can also be accommodated to please all parties. As you see here, I mean, although there's different views, different time horizons, different levels of aggregation, and different conversions, through the advent of being able to handle the big data problem, as well as being able to do this faster through in-memory technology, all this can be integrated to, and even though they all read differently. Another issue companies face is the operational headcount planning today. Some of the workforce planning processes are manual and cumbersome, and a lot of them aren't aligned either. When I worked in finance, getting to the OPEX number in terms of headcount was always a challenge because it was difficult to get cost center numbers. It was difficult to be able to understand what employees were there, salaries, and really how to consolidate these numbers and when people were leaving and such, because there really weren't integration between the HR function and the finance function. And really with systems being connected these days, people should be able to ask, how much can their departments grow? Are they getting the correct numbers from their HR departments? And in terms of their senior leadership, they should be able to get a bigger view of their company in terms of their employee base. To solve the operational headcount planning, it's really based on the fact that you have information available. It's to prepare and analyze. Prepare your budget proposals, set up your planning guidelines, and analyze your internal workforce structure. Look at all the internal functions you have, such as all your cost centers, all the employees, all the job grades and such. Analyze your quantitative and qualitative data as well. In terms of deriving it, create different planning scenarios. Use technology and integrated business planning process to really drive as many what-if scenarios as you can, based on good cases, bad cases, and such. Consolidate this as well. Get information as much as possible from various cost center owners and managers, and publish this information out to them, aggregate it as well, and do different slicing and dicing to be able to consolidate proper headcount statistics, and finally execute on this. So what IBP does is it really creates a tightly coupled plan across your different lines of businesses. It allows for your finance department and your finance processes to be connected to your resources, your CapEx planning, being able to provide budgeting and forecasting for, let's say, CapEx planning to your CapEx group so that they understand what projects and what initiatives are required for the next year. It allows those processes to go into your sales and marketing group so that your sales and marketing group can understand, based on assets and things that might be in play for next year and projects, what they can use as some of their initiatives. Pushing this out to operations so that your operations group can understand, in terms of a manufacturing space, what to produce, what not to produce, and what are some of the items that sales is looking for. So, for example, that they can produce raw material, acquire and source raw materials and other costs accordingly. And finally, the human capital piece. What are the resources you need? What is some of the compensation planning you need to do in terms of people planning to be able to drive the efforts of your organization? Some key trends that are driving the future of enterprise performance planning, being integrated business planning, are a single platform for real-time data and functional models, being able to, in one environment, access all your enterprise-wide data, being able to complete your strategic plans and connected that with all your financial plans, S&OP planning, and operational planning, and having this enabled by in-memory technology for real complex calculations, large data volumes, and real performance management type solutions. Allocations, for example, it doesn't have to be done at a high level. You can roll it down to your lowest level. You can do granular level processing from bottom up as well. And it can be done in any way, and with regards to whether it be on-premise, hosted, virtual, or cloud, so that there's no longer a technology impediment in terms of moving forward with your planning solutions. So now that we've talked a lot about integrated business planning, it's time to integrate your business plan, which is something that a lot of organizations struggle with. Whether this be your budgets, forecasts, flashes, your strat plans, they all tie in. And the key is to make sure that all these models tie into each other. First, you start with your strategic plan. This might be your 1-year plan for this year plus your 4 years going forward, and your 1 year or your 2 years might be rolled into months or quarters. But it's really a vision for where your company wants to go for the next 5 years. But it's an exercise that should not be completed in isolation. Your strat plan needs to tie into your budget or your forecast plan. Whether this be once you've completed your strat plan exercise, make sure that this ties into your budget in terms of the 1 year of your strat plan with some modifications based on the information you may know, ties into your budget or plan. Even once you've done your budget or plan, there really needs to be operational validation. A budget or plan by a finance department can't be completed in isolation. There needs to be consensus amongst the various groups, such as your operations or your sales group, trade promotions, for example, and as well as updating the plan with regards to units and COGS in terms of if consensus is not achieved. Once the validation is done, it's time to cycle back to your budget and plan. And the cycle needs to happen as many times as possible. In my experience, to get the information right, in my experience with budgeting and forecasting, I've seen many times where as organizations get closer and closer to a due date for budgeting and forecasting, items are rushed due to technology constraints, and eventually everything is done at a high level. There's plugs placed in because the technology does not permit to go back and adjust the plans on a real-time basis. With the advent of in-memory technology as well as solving the big data problem, this really is possible in this day and age. Once your budget and plan is done, evaluate your workforce, your project and capital as part of this process. Look at do proper headcount planning, do proper projects in terms of your fixed assets and initiatives you're looking at doing for the following year, as well as capital planning. Once this evaluation is done, it needs to tie back to your budget and plan as well. It needs to be part of the overall budgeting and planning cycle so that your budget and plan is constantly evolving in a real-time basis with as many players as possible so that it's getting a true consensus from the overall enterprise. So, and really what we have next is once you've built out your budget and plan, this should be the root of your forecast so that as you move into your next year cycle, your budget is able to seed your forecast and you're able to move through in a manner that everything ties in. And even once you've done your forecast, that shouldn't be the end of it because with all the effort placed in your forecast, that should go right back into your strategic plan for the following year. Even having all this really, I mean, data is data, information is information, and budgets are budgets if it's not used properly. The key is once you have this is really to optimize, model, and report, whether it be through handheld technology such as iPads, being able and using the latest in mobility-based devices to be able to access your reports in real time, to be able to see it through dashboards in a real-time basis, and make sure that you have a full view of your enterprise in a connected manner. And the key of this is really to make sure it's powered by in-memory solutions that which will enable this to happen happen at the speed of light and really take away from some of the lethargic processes of days back. So in summary, some of the things to do are really look at your current processes beyond finance and expand your vision. Working in budgeting and forecasting, oftentimes organizations are left in the finance departments are left in a siloed environment, but go beyond that. Invite the enterprise to participate, encourage collaboration, and avoid these silos. And finally, let technology be an enabler to integrated business planning. In the past, it might have been a detractor or something that prevented you from integrating your business plan or integrating your enterprise, but that's really not an excuse in this day and age. It is possible. But things to avoid are limiting your vision. Integrated business planning is a journey. It's not something, as I mentioned, that happens in one day or 1 year. It's something that will constantly evolve, and keep that in mind. Very few organizations ever reach a perfect situation because there really is no perfect situation. The business climate is always evolving. And finally, it's not about just integrating your plan, but integrating everything into an overall planning process. And thank you. And with that, I turn it over to you, John.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Great overview. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and launch the second polling question now, and we will get ready to go into Q&A. So I'm just launching the polling question there. You should see it on your screens now. Let's go ahead and take 30 seconds to answer this question. As a finance organization, which of these issues would be most important to resolve at your company? I'll remind folks that now is a good time to be asking questions. Once you're done with that poll, asking questions via your GoToWebinar control panel, the question area there. And we will start going after those questions in just a moment. We'll leave this up for another 5 seconds. So please do go ahead and get your response in, and then we will move. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close down this poll. And thank you very much. We do have one more poll, which will come at the very end of today's presentation. So there's a third poll coming. Why don't we start out by taking a quick peek at these two polls. It's all anonymized, generalized data, but let's take a look. Which of the following is the highest priority area for improvement at your company? Interesting here, of course, we're talking about budgeting and forecasting. And that was one of the top items, but analysis is the top item, and I think a lot of folks are trying to get the budgeting and forecasting processes done more quickly so they have more time for analysis. Praz, what's your take on these numbers?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's really connected to analysis and budgeting. I mean, if we went back to the first slide where Gartner did this survey, I believe these two were neck and neck in 2012 and really in 2013 in terms of what the finance office wanted to see. And I believe, and this is a correct estimate, and they're really connected in the sense that even if once you have a correct budgeting process, there's really not much value in the information if you can't do proper analysis on it, whether at the KPIs and dashboards, for instance, real-time evaluation, or being able to give your C-level executives insight into the enterprise or insight into your budgets and forecasts without that being available.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you. Let's go ahead and jump into some of the questions that we've got at this point. And we'll start with integrated business planning. Sounds like a very big project. First off, how big a company do you have to be, or maybe the opposite is, how small can you be when you start a process like this?
So it's not really an issue of size, in my opinion. I've seen smaller organizations attempt it as well as larger organizations attempt it, and the attempt can also take the similar amount of duration because of the layers involved in terms of, let's say, bureaucracy, data and such. Now, as I've indicated, a lot of the data and technology problems should be solved in this day and age. So really it comes down to a functional issue, where to start. And I wouldn't attempt to solve everything at once. What I would prescribe and what I've seen other organizations do is really start with a vision of what your overall plan is for an integrated business planning methodology and start to work at that. So the first step might be operational planning in terms of headcount planning, and then true sales and operational planning. I worked with one organization, for example, in my earlier days where we started with headcount planning, and we had this great idea whereby cost center owners could update templates and in terms of salary information and things of that nature for their employees, and budget for when their employees, when they would add new employees, leave new employees, when employees would leave. And one of the mistakes we made was actually not talking to HR about this. So imagine our surprise when we started this process and HR tells us, well, we're not giving you salary information and we don't really care what you're attempting. So that was an example of something not to do, but really the lesson learned from that was to involve all parties and to move forward in that sense. But start small and move big at that from there on in.
Okay. Let's see. Well, that actually brings us directly to another question we've got, which is highly related, which is when the budget and forecast process is being run by the finance organization only, or primarily, it's a lot easier to hit milestones and to kind of run the process when you have every organization, and boy, you just gave a perfect example of it, every organization in the company involved. Sure, you can get closer to the ground and presumably better inputs, but what are the challenges that this adds to the process as a whole?
So it's not easy by any means, and there are trade-offs. As a finance organization, one of the things that you can do is look at really your P&L or your balance sheet line by line and see where the information that would help make this more accurate resides. You, as a finance organization, may have a very difficult time or have pushback getting operations or HR to meet your budget timelines, your strat plan timelines, your monthly forecast timelines, your flash forecast timelines. But maybe this can be accomplished on a one-off basis, let's say for strat plans when other organizations are doing their vision planning and such. But in terms of on a more frequent basis, one thing that might be easier is basically understanding where this data resides in your organization because of the planning other parts of the organization are doing, and then tying that back in without getting their direct involvement, but involving IT and understanding the data, and based on that pulling the data in so as to not force others to follow a process, but rather you establish the process for them.
So isolate the data from the people and do as much as you can with data automation and then deal with the people as needed.
Sure.
Is in-memory a hardware solution or a software solution?
In-memory is a combination, actually. So it's a database platform offered by many different vendors in the marketplace today that really challenges the legacy database systems. One of the things I recall as a budgeting in my previous days of budgeting forecasting was that we would go through a budgeting cycle, and then at the end of the evening, we would all go away for the evening, and the system would spend about 5-6 hours aggregating and consolidating it. And the next morning, if we had a change, we had to do these changes manually in Excel to be able to capture it, because we couldn't go through the 5-6 hours or the 2-3 hours to have the data aggregate all over again. In-memory technology is a database platform which allows things, as I mentioned, to happen in an in-memory platform. Without going into specifics, things happen at a rapid speed. In my experience, some companies that have adopted in-memory technology have seen 200 times speeds in regards to getting their information, and as well as consolidating their information.
Okay. So we've got a related question on in-memory, which is, will in-memory solutions create some problems, such as being reactive to real-time data streams? So if the results are coming in so quickly, might that actually cause your enterprise to do some things that it might not have done had it, ironically, the data come in more slowly?
I can see that happening, and I often ask myself that as well, because one of the slides I presented is that financial analysts often now spend way too much time preparing data, aggregating data to make them meet a certain manner. I guess a better problem would be in the future to have all the information available and normalized and spend your time analyzing it. But you're right. It can be a problem, and it's a problem that needs to be matched and resolved through proper boundaries, and as well as service level agreements as well in terms of what you can and what you will provide.
Okay. Next up, why did you have the budget/plan step in your process separate from the operational validation step? Should that not be happening sort of at the same time within the business units, or is this an issue of seeing how things roll up and then pushing it back down, rolled up to the units, and see how they like the whole forecast or plan?
Absolutely. It's a great question. In the scenario I painted, the budget was established first, and then it was pushed out to an operational validation area. This is just one example of a budgeting process. And in some examples of organizations I've worked with, the C-level executives will push back to finance and give them high-level targets to start off budget and forecast with. And then they send off the data for operational validation. And through that, the lower-level inputs might come, or finance has already provided the inputs back for operational validation. But you're right that it's a process that needs to work in a harmonious manner. They can't be working in different silos. They need to work in a very, no pun intended, but integrated manner.
And that question actually is directly related to another question we've got here, which is integrated business planning inherently more bottoms up? Now, you just mentioned, a very traditional sort of tops down and then iterative process, but does having all this real-time, bottoms up operational data lend to this process to being now more of a bottoms up process?
I believe so, and I think what it does is it allows you to do both, because with integrated business planning, you have the ability to pull in data in real time, all your drivers as needed to launch your business plans. But with in-memory technology, you also have the ability from high levels to set targets, and below those targets right down to your lowest levels based on, let's say, prior year or forecast or budget results. So you can really compare and do variance analysis between, let's say, a high level to low level, and really understand where you as a finance organization are coming from based on targets that might have been set, but where operations and other groups might be coming from based on where they see at a granular level the organization is heading.
So, that brings up an interesting question. Are today's platforms, do they somehow accommodate the signaling of top-down desires within the organization? So in my 20 years or so in finance, the whole top-down thing was always, passed down by word of mouth practically. Here are the targets and these are the heads, et cetera. Do today's systems actually allow you to elucidate those targets more clearly so that folks who are building the bottoms up can kind of hew more towards the direction that the executive team might be desirous of hitting?
Absolutely. I mean, and I recall those days not so fondly as well, whereby before starting a budgeting and forecasting cycle, the C-level executives will have a meeting and there'll be a PowerPoint deck prepared. And based on that PowerPoint deck, there's communication in terms of what sales targets are, what they might be by certain divisions, and then you plug it into your Excel model and try to work back to a number, and then take that number back to your business. In this day and age, that really should not be happening. There should be templates and drivers whereby you can input data at high levels and have it aggregate and blow back down to really detailed levels, in fact, SKU levels for consumer packaged companies, to be able to take those numbers again at the high level, aggregate it right back down so that there's no word-of-mouth type planning. It's really, it's very transparent, and it's all accounted for as well.
Okay. Can you address the issue of tracking changes between budgets and forecasts?
Sure.
So how do systems handle that, and and also maybe address the whole issue of rolling forecasts and things like that. So basically, how do you make the budget something other than just a one-time throw it on the shelf deal?
Sure. So in your budgeting system, whichever tool you may use, you probably have one version of a budget. Then you might have a few different working copies. And I say few because of the time that's spent in creating those few copies as needed. That might signal high-end targets, worst-case scenarios, best-case scenarios, and things of that nature. With the advent of, again, with all the progress we've made with technology, you should be able to simulate as many scenarios and situations as you please. Situations with, let's say, divestitures, and then best-case scenarios added onto that. and create as many working copies as needed and analytical copies. So you'll always have your working copy of your budget, and then, but beyond that, you'll also have different what-if copies that are really limited to the people within the organization that you like to segregate it to. How that ties to your forecast generally I've seen is that once you've done your budget, you move into your next year and you have your first forecast, which might be first month actuals and the rest of your budget, and then you can bring in data from all your from your lowest level enterprise platforms to create the new version of the forecast, and then tie that back into the budget by doing various variance analysis and other types of metrics as well through reporting.
Okay. Now, speaking of all of those tie-ins, how big a challenge is the technology integration when it comes to integrated business planning?
So I would say in the past it was a very big challenge, and now I would say now it's more of it is a challenge, but it's a challenge that can be overcome. Technology is not really the challenge, I would say. It's more of understanding your data and being able to scrub your data properly so that you're getting the accurate information. So again, technology and hardware, those aren't the bottlenecks anymore. It's understanding your data and what data means to other people in the organization and what it means to you and the normalization of that process.
So are you typically seeing companies working with SIs or technology partners? Are they doing this tech integration internally in order to hook up all their systems for an IBP process?
I've seen both. I have seen a lot of reliance, quite a bit of reliance on SIs because they do bring best practices from what they've seen with other people, other similar organizations or similar tools, and I think it makes sense to rely on that body of knowledge in order to do this properly.
Mm-hmm. How many different forecasts are most systems, most modern forecasting systems able to support? Are there any limits these days?
There really aren't, and I've seen forecasts that are monthly detailed forecasts as well as flash forecasts on a weekly basis, so planning at a weekly level and then having that data through the course of the weeks tie into a monthly forecast number for your next periods out, as well as having rolling forecasts as well that go, let's say, 18 months to 2 years. There really is no limitation. The limitation at this point in time is what you can understand and what you can comprehend.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then finally, can you give us an example of a client you've worked with to help overcome the IBP challenge, and just kind of walk us soup to nuts through their issue and what they did to come out with a better solution at the end?
Sure, and this won't start off pleasant because I think it makes sense to talk to you about some of the pitfalls I faced, but I think through the mistakes that were made, those are things I can share with you that hopefully that you as an organization won't make in your journey. Going back to that first illustration I gave where we started with a cost center planning exercise and then we're finally told that HR would not allow us to get salary information which cost center managers could apply raises to based on merit increases and things of that nature, or transfers and such. We had to compromise, and the compromise that was made was talking to the different cost center owners across enterprise and saying to them that, look, we can't get real-time cost center salary information, even though it is available, but what we can do is, for example, based on employee grades, get midpoints and use those midpoints to help you address salary information. And once that was done, that was part of the functional process where we had to build consensus amongst all the cost center owners and satisfy HR as well to make sure that they would be willing to give us that information on a yearly basis. And once that was done, we were actually able to take a lot of this cost center information and roll it into the salaries, benefits, and benefits lines of the overall OPEX area. In terms of OPEX, we were able to basically then provide templates to different cost center owners as well to provide, to be able to allow for them to be able to budget what their different cost center expenses were, as well as bring in project teams to be able to allocate, for them to be able to allocate what part of their projects would be CapEx and what part of their projects would be OPEX related. And it was a journey that started bottom up that is still evolving with this client. So, and I think that goes back to what I said before, that integrated business planning is something that is really hard to finish. It's a vision and it's a journey that must be, that just keeps evolving.
Okay, great. Any closing thoughts, Praz, before we get into the final issues here that we'll cover at the event?
As I iterated before, I think the key thing is that it's not a one-day process. It's not something that's accomplished overnight. It is a journey, but it's a journey that can start today based on a vision you have. And as finance, I feel that you're empowered based on your ability to be a business partner and your overall view into the whole organization to lead that journey.
Great, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for that. Let's go ahead and jump into a few items as we move into the final portion of this webinar. Number one, a quick reminder, you'll be prompted to take a short survey once this webinar concludes. We do appreciate you giving us the extra 1 minute to fill that out. If you'd like to follow up with Praz or with other folks at S&OP, our sponsor, you can indicate that in the survey as well, and we'd love to get your feedback on today's event because we always want to know what we can do better the next time. If you have any questions about CPE credit, please contact Chris Brower, and you can see her contact information there at the bottom of the screen. Plus, please join us at Performative, where we are always having conversations like this and related conversations amongst peers. It's just going on 24/7 here, so if you have further questions or you want to see what your peers are up to, this is a great place to do it. Quick reminder, final reminder probably for Performance Tech. We've got over 500 folks registered for this big technology conference in the San Francisco Bay Area. Hopefully you're signed up, but if you aren't, you've still got a couple of days to get on board. This will be a wonderful place to see the latest fintech across finance, accounting, treasury, and related functional specialties. We greatly appreciate the support of S&OP as our sponsor today. Their support allows us to provide programs like this at no cost to all of our users. So we greatly appreciate that. Also, of course, they provided today's speaker. Praz obviously has a lot of wonderful operational background to help him add color and direct experience to the lessons he was giving us today. So great thanks to S&OP, and a thanks to you, Praz, for your time and insight. We greatly appreciate that.
Great. Thank you very much, Sean. Appreciate being here, and thank you, everybody, for being a great audience.
Wonderful. Now we're going to go ahead and launch the third and final polling question at this point. So as before, we'll leave this up for about 30 seconds. And when we're done with this, we will go ahead and close down the webinar, which will pop up the post-event survey. And one last time, we do really appreciate you giving us the extra 60 seconds to take that post-event survey. And then we'll send you on your way. So we'll leave this out for another 5 seconds or so here. And with that, we'll go ahead and close this final question down. I'm going to go ahead and close down the webinar itself at this point. We really appreciate everyone who's online today giving us your time and attention. We hope to see you again in the near future at performative.com or on another Performative event. Take care. Have a great week, everyone.